This conference will now be recorded.
All right. So let's come back here, and we are here. This is what we have been doing. So we have a developer who's checking in the code into the develop branch using a feature commit. And here, in order to eliminate the manual procedure, we have done what? We have done a Sonar integration so that whenever the developer kind of raises a pull request, the Sonar will validate the branch that is coming in the form of a pull request, validate the entire code, and give, let's say, the technical lead or whoever is like, let's say, coming to approve this particular code, an idea that what's coming in, an idea that whether are there bugs and etc and so on and so forth. And just in case if the code quality doesn't meet the expected standard, the Sonar will fail, and so will the build fail, and then the PR will not get merged. Then we had basically a develop branch. Once the code got merged into the develop branch, then the CI activity is getting started, and the CI is giving you the artifact. At the end, the CI is actually giving you something known as an artifact right now. But again, the question here is that until now, until this point, I've been using, like, whenever I've been doing a CI pipeline, like, since we are a very small project, it's okay for me. Like, whenever I'm doing a CI pipeline out here, I am making sure to use something called as a Microsoft hosted agent, right? Now, this is something that Azure is like, in the background building it out. And it is like, kind of giving me out in the form of a virtual machine on top of which I can do all my CI/CD activities. I can actually go ahead and do all my CI/CD activities, and I can basically use this particular agent what Microsoft is giving me. But the question now or the issue is that what if I have like a very big team of developers who are doing a lot of CI/CD processes, and everyone is like kind of complaining that the pipelines are very slow because of the agents, because Microsoft in one attempt, right, or in, let's say, if let's say you have 10 pipelines that are running parallelly, Microsoft only supports one pipeline at one given point in time, meaning Microsoft only gives you one agent at one given point in time. Apart from that, Microsoft will not give you any agent as at that particular point. So what's going to happen is that when one pipeline is running, the rest nine pipelines are in queue, and after the first one completes, the second one starts, second one completes, the third one starts. So the time for the developmental activity, let's say when you are talking about a big organization, the time is very crucial out here. The development needs to be very quick and all. So that's the reason they say, okay, fine, if this is not a model basically what Microsoft can support, let's go ahead and create our own agents. Let's not rely on Microsoft. Let's not rely upon the agents that are given by Microsoft. Let us get our own agent. And how do you get that? Now, how do you see this agent out here is that when you go to the project settings out here, under something known as agent pools, you have three different pools out here. Like, this is something that I created, but by default you'll have two different pools. One is an Azure pipeline pool, the other is a default pipeline pool. So when I go into the Azure pipelines, this is the agent which is allocated to you by Microsoft. Like, if you go into this particular region, this is the agent basically that is allocated by you, and you have like a couple of capabilities and all that stuff basically for this particular agent. Now, but when you go to, let's say, the other pool, like you have like, let's say, the other pools also, the default and the on-premise pool. Now, this on-premise pool is something that I have created for my own workloads and all, which is like my virtual machine basically out here. And when I go here and when I look at the capabilities, now you see it's like giving you a lot of capabilities out here, telling that what, this is the agent name, this is the agent version, and all that stuff. And it's telling, okay, fine, there is a .NET installed on top of it. So whenever I install something known as, or whenever I make my machine, or whenever I made my machine, let's say, as a self-hosted agent, it went ahead, read all the properties of my machine, and it's giving me in the form of a capabilities, so that someone basically who's using this particular agent can understand what are the capabilities of this machine, what is the operating system on which this machine is actually running on, and all that stuff. So which is a useful information. But how do I really add something here? How do I really, let's say, add something here? So I have one pool called on-prem. I'll add another pool called on cloud. So I'll say, okay, fine. I'll say it's a new pool. I'll say, okay, fine, it's a self-hosted pool out here. I'll say this is on the cloud pool or on cloud pool. Now, pools are spaces where you can create number of agents. Like one pool can host a number of agents, like a lot of agents basically can be hosted in one particular pool. So I'm saying, okay, fine, this is an on cloud pool. I do not have any agents right now. So I'll say new agent. And it's asking me to download something. Like if it depends upon what kind of an agent that you're creating. If it's Windows, then you'll have to download this. If it's a Mac OS, then you'll have to do something else. If it's a Linux, you'll have to do something else. So I'll just go for Windows as of now, and I'll say it's a 64-bit architecture basically that I'm working on. And I'll say download. As soon as I download it, I have somewhere around 150 MB basically of software to be downloaded. So I'll just download this, and what I have done in the background is that I have spinned up a virtual machine in Azure. Like this is a two virtual CPU on a 4 GB RAM of machine out here. So what I did, I just spinned this up. I just did an RDP into it, and I just installed a software called Visual Studios. So I mean, since it's a big software, I went ahead and installed it out. So I have something like a Visual Studio 2019 server already installed on my machine. So what are the list of softwares that we need? Is since that we are dealing with something like a .NET workload, I need Visual Studio, which I have. I need a .NET Core runtime or a .NET Core dependencies and all that stuff. So I'll say it's a .NET Core runtime, and I'll say a .NET Full Framework runtime. And if required, I would say install and keep git exe. These are the couple of softwares basically that I need so that I can basically convert this agent or convert this machine into an agent. So what I'm going to do right now is I'll just I'll say show in folder, and I'll just do a copy out here, and I'll just paste it on that particular machine so that I can use it later. So I'll say copy, and I'll just say paste it on this particular machine out here so that this can be used at a later point in time. Like how I can use and all that we'll see. So once the copy is kind of coming on, what I want to do right now is that I am basically going ahead and installing something like ASP.NET Full Framework. So I'll just visit the link by Microsoft, and here you have a the latest framework, which is 4.7.2. So I'll just click it down, download this, and install this out, which is the first step. Second is the .NET Core framework, and even that is something that I'd like to install. So the first thing that I did, since it would take a long time, I went ahead and let's say I installed something like Visual Studios 2019 server. And once I installed it, right now I'm going ahead and installing the .NET 4.7.2 full framework out here. And parallelly, I am going ahead and let's say copying everything basically that I've have on my local machine. So I just went into the agent pool again. I said new agent, and it gave me this particular page. So I'm just downloading this particular zip file, and I am basically copying this zip file on top of my agent machine. And now it says okay, fine, and all that stuff. It says later update. Okay, it's already installed because I already installed Visual Studio, so that kind of installed the .NET framework out here. So Visual Studio went ahead and let's say installed the .NET framework, so I do not have to do this. So I'll say .NET Core. I'll say .NET Core runtime. Let me see if it's already there. It's already there, then we're good. So this is the recommended version right now. So I'll say install or download basically the .NET SDK x64 version. SDK is again the software development kit basically that I want to download here. And I'll say click here download manually, and this will basically download the .NET SDK out here. So I'll just go ahead and let's say run this out. And let this get copied. and I'll say install. Now I am installing a .NET SDK 5.0 version, guys. This is important if you want to build a project like a .NET Core. So the installation was successful and it just happened in a minute. So what all softwares that we installed right now is like .NET Core Runtime, which is 5.0, Visual Studio 2019 server, that's done. Full framework was already done when I installed Visual Studios, and I'll basically go ahead and install the git.exe. So I'll say git for Windows, and I'll use the official site of Git. Just say download, and I'll also install this out. And I'll say next, and I'll just do a standard installation of it. So just a very standard installation of it. And done. Now the question here is that, do I have to do the software installation on each and every agent machine that I kind of spin up? Yes, you have to. Isn't this a manual procedure? That's where our concepts of Azure comes into picture. Now, after installing all these things, the idea is that can't I not go ahead and generalize this particular virtual machine or make this virtual machine as an image with already all the pre-existing softwares? We can do, right? So I'm just trying to connect the dots that what we learned in Azure can be applied when we are doing the DevOps practices. So one thing is that yes, the certain interview question is that will you be doing it every time? Like will you be basically doing it every time that you go ahead and let's say I don't need this. Okay, okay, fine. I don't need this. We don't need this. So the question is that will you be doing all these installations every time? No, not really. We can either write a custom PowerShell script to install all these things out, or you can just install it on one machine, convert that machine to let's say an image, and then spin up all your agent workloads from that particular machine or for that particular image. So what's going to happen is that whenever you spin up, let's say a virtual machine from a particular image after all this installation, all the machines will have all the required softwares like .NET Core Runtime, Visual Studios, like Git and all that stuff. The only thing that you will be doing is installing this particular agent. Right now, this agent is out here. This is the installation procedure and all. Even this can be automated, guys. Even this can be automated, but you'll need to write a PowerShell script out there. You'll need to write a PowerShell basically in order to do all that stuff. So once this is copied, let's see what I'm doing right now. Guys, until this point, do you all have any questions? Any questions on the procedure that we are going ahead with it? Anything basically that you all want to ask while the copy activity is like going on in the backend?
Uh, So, uh, so we are
Mhm.
spin up multiple virtual machine for this agent. So the
Mhm.
agent version is the same. The agent which we downloading is same for the all the missions, or it's different from different virtual missions.
So if it's a Windows workload, then this is the same thing, like the one that you see on my screen. This is the the same agent version that you'll be downloading every time. If it's a Mac OS, it's different. If it's a Linux OS, it's different. The procedure is different. So it depends upon the kind of machine that you're actually going for. If it's a Windows, then this is the same thing.
Okay, so we can
Yeah.
copy into this downloaded agent for the other missions, and we can install it, right?
Yes, we can. So we can just do a copy paste of the download machine over there. Actually, I could have directly gone ahead to dev.azure.com and directly downloaded this file instead of just waiting for the copy to finish. That would be actually easy. Say sign to Azure DevOps. Let's use the account. This is actually more faster than the way that I'm doing right now. let's say no, and let's say go to our project, and let's say go to the project setting, and let's say go to the agent pool, let's say the cloud pool, new agent, and I'll just download this out. Yeah, this is in a second, that's it. And once the download is done, let me say show in folder, and what I'm going to do right now is I'll just extract this out. So when it's just lets me do that, I'll just go ahead and extract it out. I'll say fine, extract all. I'll say yes, extract in this particular folder.
If we have already files downloaded, which means VS
Hmm?
Code and Git
Hmm.
downloaded, then can we copy this to RTP?
Yes, you can copy it to RDP, but the better way is just downloading it over the virtual machine, because that happens very quick. Like that happens really very quick, and you will not even notice the time basically. But when you're doing it over the RDP, it takes a lot of time because you're transferring over the network. So it takes a lot of time. So the best suggestion is that you can download all these things going into the virtual machine and etc. And it also depends upon the virtual machine that you're dealing with. Right now I'm dealing with a B series virtual machine. That's the reason it's very slow. But in the organization, right, you'll be dealing with something like an F series and etc., which will be like damn fast. Like it'll just happen in a fraction of seconds. Even the installation of VS Code and all that stuff, it'll happen in fractions of seconds out there. So since we are just doing a cost cutting out here, like since we are moderating our cost, since it's a pay as you go subscription that I've kind of created out, so we are just moderating the cost. So that's the reason I just went for a standard B2S machine. It's like gives us, let's say, around 2 core CPU and 4 GB RAM, but it's kind of a bit slow. But for high performance workloads, when you actually start working in an organization, you'll basically use series like F and all, F series and all that stuff, which is like actually very fast. So in that scenario, what you can do is like you can go ahead and download, install all the softwares right on the machine itself, which is which will be faster than doing an RDP input. So hope that answers, Akila.
So in the RTP itself, we can open the Chrome and download the VS Code also.
Yeah, you can do that in the RDP. You can do that. Like I'm doing an RDP right now. Like this is something that I did an RDP and then went into that particular machine. So I have all these things out here. So what I'll do is like I'll take this folder that got extracted and I'll just paste it out inside, let's say, my C drive. Since it's a D drive out here, it might be a bit slow. So I'll just go ahead and let's say copy this out and I'll just paste it in the premium SSD that I do have out here. So once the paste is done, I'll just go ahead and I'll tell you all what is the procedure that we need to do. Now, until now, what we've been doing is that we just basically created a virtual machine, installed all the required softwares, and created a pool in Azure DevOps. And now we are going ahead and doing the actual procedure of installation of the agent on this particular virtual machine that we have created. So what I'm going to do is like I'll go into this folder and what I'm doing out here is this. I'm clicking on the path and I'll do a CMD. So command prompt is actually going to open in this particular path. So it is same, see something like this. So command prompt is open in this particular path. Now what I will do is like I'll invoke this particular file called config. So dot backslash config dot cmd. As and when I do it, now we'll say, you know what? Okay, this is an installation of, let's say, the Azure pipeline agent. Can you please give me the server URL that you want to install on? Meaning, can you give me the Azure DevOps URL on which you want to install the agent on. So I'll just copy until my playground, that's the organization name. I'll copy this and I'll paste it out here. And I'll say enter. Now it's telling, okay, fine. I understand you want to install this agent on this particular organization and make it as a self-hosted agent. Now the question is, how do you authenticate? Meaning Azure as such, this is a workload. This is a VM basically is a workload which is running on Azure, which is a software as a service. It's a different portal. Again, DevOps is a different portal. DevOps is a different portal. Now you are trying to install the machine. You are trying to install a virtual machine from any cloud, like let's say be AWS, let's say be GCP, any cloud, and you want to authenticate into Azure. Meaning even you can do a cross cloud platform. You can do an on-prem from the cloud, and you can do multiple options out here. But how can this machine authenticate itself to Azure? Meaning how can this machine log into Azure DevOps and say, yes, I do have the proper credentials? That is where a concept called PAT token comes into picture. PAT stands for Personal Access Token. Now, unlike you, unlike me, these machines cannot basically use ID and password to log in every time, right? So what they'll be doing is that they will be using something known as a personal access token. Now, how do I generate a personal access token? Is come here, like this is your account, right? Just beside your account, it says user settings. Here you have something called personal access token. And I can say new token, and I can say token for agent, something like this. And I can say, okay, fine, since this agent needs a lot of things, I'll say full access. And the period of time, I'll just give it like 90 days or something like that. Like normally we give it like 1 year. Like I'll do a custom defined and we kind of give it like 1 year out here. Like what is the prime, what is the entry, and what is the exit out here. But right now I'm just giving a 90-day period, and I'll just say create. And now it gives you a token out here. Okay, this is a personal access token, and this is how it looks like. A random alphanumeric string, and once you close it out, right, you will not get this again. So that's the reason it's saying make sure you copy the token and basically store it somewhere, because you will not see it again. So I'll say close, and I'll basically take this token out, go into my virtual machine. Now it's telling, how do you want to authenticate? Press enter for PAT. I'll say yes, it's a PAT basically that I want to do. Now it's saying enter the personal access token. So I have copied and I've pasted my personal access token out here. And now it will authenticate. Now it's saying, okay, fine, you are authenticated. Like I understand, yes, this is connecting to the server. And if your personal access token is not invalid, it will throw an error out here telling that, you know what, I couldn't establish an authentication with the server. Are you entering the right personal access token? Now it's saying, okay, fine, register the agent. And it's now asking me, where do you want to make sure, or where do you want me to register this agent? Like which pool that you want me to register this agent? And we already have a pool called on cloud, right? I want this agent to go ahead and sit in that particular pool called on cloud pool. So I'll say, okay, fine. This is on cloud pool. This is the pool that I want you to, use. Now it's asking me, okay, fine. What is the name of the agent? Now it's telling press enter for agent VM, because this is the machine that I created. Like the machine that I created is called agent VM. So by default, it's asking me, do you want to do the same? Now I'll say, I want to use a different name called agent01 Windows. I'll say win. I'll just say enter. Now it's saying, okay, fine. I need to basically scan for the capabilities, meaning I want to see what are all the softwares that are installed in this machine and all that stuff. Now it's telling, okay, fine. I have downloaded all the tools required. Now it's telling, what do you want the working folder to be? Meaning this agent needs to do what? This agent needs to do a lot of work, right? Like it has to convert all your binaries. It has to do all that stuff. For doing that, it needs a workspace. For that, it needs a folder, it needs a drive on your computer. That is called the work folder out here. It's saying by default it is underscore work. Are you okay with it? I'll say yes, I'm okay with it. And now it's asking, now enter run agent as a service. Now, do you want to basically do this agent as a service? Now, there are two methods in which the agent kind of runs. One called as a service, the other called as an interactive. Now, as a service meaning, what will happen is that this agent will be registered as a Windows service. If you go to this task manager, right, you'll have like n number of services that are running in the background. Like these are all the background services that are running, and the agent will also be registered as a background service out here. If you select an interactive, what's going to happen is that the agent is going to be running as a CMD window, which you can interact with, which you can see how is it going and stuff like that. 99% of the times, the organizations wherever you work will kind of choose running agent as a service only, because it's easier. It's like, it'll restart itself, it'll maintain itself and all that stuff. So for that particular purpose, I'll say yes, I want to do, basically use the agent as a service. By default it is taking no, so I'll say I need this agent as a service, and it's asking me what is the default user account that you want to use. And by default there is a user account called NT Authority Network Service. Like by in my machine there is a user account called something like this. I'll say yes, enter. I'll just take this particular account out here. KYC enter not working. Yeah, and now it says okay, fine. Like this configuration is done. Enter whether you want to prevent starting immediately service and all that stuff. I'll say no, and now it says okay, fine, this services is right now running. Now if you see now, if you go into this particular pool out here, now you have an agent out here which is offline, of course. This agent needs to come back online, meaning I'll just have to restart this particular machine and the agent will start running in the background. So this is the installation procedure of an agent on any computer, like not only Windows, like any kind of Windows systems, you'll have a similar kind of a procedure out here. Now if you want to install the same thing on Linux, how do you do it? It's like again new agent, and I just followed these procedure out here. You can do Linux out here. This is how you'll basically do it on Linux. Like you'll have a Linux terminal and all that stuff, and you can do it on a Linux in this way. Now what I'll do is like I'll just give the virtual machine a restart. So I'll just say okay, fine, restart this particular machine. Just say okay, continue, and I'll also basically stop this machine and start this out again. So the installation procedure is very simple, and what we have used in order to authenticate the agent is called a personal access token. So I made sure that I basically give a personal access token, and I went ahead and gave that personal access token during the installation of this machine. And I made sure that the machine is registered as an agent on our pool. So this is how it will say, okay, fine, the machine got registered to you. Now what I'm going to do after, let's say, a couple of minutes, I'll just basically, start my machine back again. Like after it is stopped, I'll go ahead and start this machine back again. It's going to take like about 2 or 3 minutes of time. And once I start it, let's see if the agent comes back online. Like automatically it has to start out. If it doesn't, we'll go ahead and start it manually. So let's give it a minute so that this will basically go ahead and let's say deallocate it. So it's deallocated the machine, and after this is done, I'll say okay, fine, start it back again. So guys, until this point, any questions that I can take, anything basically that you'll have, any specific questions that y'all have, and I can take here.
Uh, can we add multiple virtual machine on the agent pool? So in that case, how that will work and what benefit we will get?
So multiple virtual machines on the same agent pool, how it's going to work. Part A, very simple. You'll have multiple machines and you'll select this pool. While let's say building your pipeline, let's say this is the pipeline. let's say edit. Now what you're going to do out here is when you have, let's say, multiple virtual machines out here, is that I'll go to the pipeline, I'll select this particular pool, that's it. I'm not giving a name of the agent. So whichever agent is free at that given particular point in time, whichever agent is like available at that particular point in time, Azure DevOps will automatically assign your jobs to that particular agent. That is A. And what is the other question? Sorry, like that's basically the multiple virtual machines. What was the other question?
Yeah, so the
What are
answer
the
is covered on
advantages?
this.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
advantages is covered.
advantages. So the thing here is that you don't really have to use multiple virtual machines again, because each and every virtual machine is going to cost you something. Now what we do out here is that we go for, in the organizations we go for, higher capacity machines like SKUs like F16s and all that stuff, which is going to cost actually a lot. So it's not advisable to go ahead and, let's say, spin up one machine per an agent. Rather, install multiple agents of the same machine. Like the procedure that I did right now, I said agent hyphen 01 hyphen Windows. The same thing, the same code that you can run again, give a personal access token and do agent hyphen 02 hyphen VM. Can you do that? Yes, you can do it on the same machine again. Meaning, if I go, let's say, into this particular IP, the machine is now running. Let's see if the agent is online. It's still offline. Let's see. So since the machine was delocated, I'll have to basically log into this particular machine and wait for the agent to come up back online. Like it'll take some time for the agent to, basically appear online like this. Let's see. And let me look for the agent, which is now running, say automatic delayed restart. And this, kind of came online back again. So I did not have to even start this machine out. It kind of came back up online again. So my point is that let's not waste our resources. Let's be more wise and utilize our resources. Let's not spin one agent per machine. Let's do like about 6 or 7 agents per machine, depending upon the capacity of the machine. So I'll again go into the same pool, and basically I can, I can rename this particular folder into something, or I can just give a copy of this one out. So I can just say copy this out, and I can basically paste it out, let's say, into a D folder or a D drive somewhere like this. With a different name, of course. And the entire folder, I'm just copying the entire folder out here with a different name. And I can also install a different agent machine out of the same thing. So I am just copying all the binaries out here, and I'm making sure to produce another machine called agent hyphen 02 hyphen Windows. So can I do it? Yes, you can do it. So can you have multiple agents, because this is running as a service in the background? So Windows doesn't mind you having, let's say, multiple agents on the same machine. So I can have multiple agents on the same machine. So what I'm essentially doing out here is, firstly, my pipelines are faster, because each and every agent node, this is called, let's say, a node out here, or each and every agent thread out here is taking one particular workload and executing on this particular machine. So imagine if you have 10 different agents running on the same machine, you can have 10 different pipelines triggered at the same time on the same machine, and it'll work. So that's how you can reduce the cost. That's the idea what you can reduce the cost. Now, why am I telling this is because these are all, like, very, very popular interview questions. It's like, what, I'm having an issue like this. My pipeline is slow, but I cannot afford more than two virtual machines in my, in my cloud, like let's say Azure. then what would be your suggestions? How many agents can you install really on top of it? Now, the number of agents that you can install, they are really not a actually a count. You can install multiple agents on the same machine, provided you basically take into factor the architecture of the machine. If the machine is just a 2-core CPU, then installing multiple agents on the same machine might not be the best option for you, because it's just a 2-core CPU. Maximum you can do here is like about 4 agents. Like, I'm just giving you a very rough number. But let's say if the core is greater, even 10 agents on the same machine can actually can actually work out for you. So number of agents on one particular machine, never a problem. But just considering the you'll just have to consider, let's say, the capacity of the machine that you're working on. So what I'm going to do right now is that I'll just say this is a test machine folder, like something like this. And again, I'll just basically run this binary out. So I'll say config.cmd. It'll again invoke the Azure pipelines. Yeah, it'll say fine. It's basically telling that the same binary is actually running on something else, so I cannot install this out. So what you're gonna do is, like, you're gonna basically download a different binary with a different folder name and extract it out. So the same thing is that this binary is already registered, so you'll again have to do an extraction out here. So the downloads, right? You just have to go to the downloads, extract this out again with a different folder name, and that will give you a fresh thing. Because right now what I've copied here, I should have copied this particular thing, but I copied the entire thing, let's say, from the C drive. That's the reason it's not working. But if you extract it, if you go ahead and extract this again into a fresh folder, that will again start working. But since this extraction is taking time, I'll just leave it. I'll just leave this for for now. But did you all get the concept, guys, or do you all want, let's say, a demo for this out, guys?
If possible, give one demo.
Okay, sure. So I'll just go to the machine. I'll just say extract all, and I'll say browse. And let's go into the C drive, and let's say new folder. Let's say agent02. So select folder, extract. So let the extraction get complete. It'll take like about a minute or two. And once this is complete, I'll show you what I'm actually doing out here. So this particular folder right now is a workspace that is dedicated to agent01. Like agent01 or agent01 Windows, is running on that particular folder. Now I'm doing another extraction for agent02. So I'm using the same zip file, but I'm extracting it out again in a fresh way into another agent02 pool out there, so that I can register a new agent out of this particular machine. So what happened here was that I just copied the entire folder of the first machine. So the agent was already registered, so that's the reason it's telling that the agent was registered. What I was supposed to do is not copy this particular folder, but just extract a new one. That's what I was supposed to do, but I did not do that. So that's the reason I was getting this error. So let's give it a second, and let's go with the install. Just let's go with the extraction. And after the extraction, let's do the same procedure what we did for agent01.
Okay, if we install the second agent, that will be create the another service, or it will use the existing service?
It will create another service. Now there will be one service allocated to one particular agent. So that is the reason, Chandra, I am talking about, since these are background services, right? They'll occupy the memory of the computer. They'll occupy the memory of the computer as a background service. So it depends upon, if you were to ask me how many number of agents that you can spin up on one particular virtual machine, ideally not a limited number, but depending upon the capacity of your machine, you'll have to take a call that if you install one agent, how much time is it actually going to take? If you install two agents on the same machine, how much time is it actually going to take, and all that stuff. So I've extracted a new one out here. So I'll just say cmd, and I'll just invoke the config.cmd command out here. Now it's going to trigger the Azure pipeline again. Now what I'm going to do is I'll just go to this particular section, and I'll just basically copy the entire link till here, and I'll say server URL. Now it's asking me what is the authentication type. So remember we had a PAT token, right? I can use the same PAT token for this agent also. I don't have to basically, sorry, I don't have to basically do a new PAT token as such. So I'll say enter for PAT. Now I'll give the PAT token. I'll say run. Now it's telling what is the agent pool that you want to use. And we had on cloud pool, right? So we'll basically use the same pool and enter. And now it's asking me what is the name of the machine. Now the first machine was what, or the first agent was what? Agent 01 Windows. Now I'll do agent 02 Windows. So you have two different machines right now. You have two different agents running on the same machine. I'll say yes, work folder, this is the one that I need. I'll say and this is a service. So I'll just enter this as a service. I'll just say use this particular account and I'll say fine. Say no, fine. Now if you see, you have an agent 2 Windows that basically it's coming up. And for the first time when this is installed, now see this like automatically came up online. So it went ahead and it basically keep this on online basically, because for the first time when you install, this is a service which is like which needs a reboot. Now when you install multiple agents, it doesn't need a reboot out here. So now I have two different agents running from the same machine, and if you were to look at the services right now, and see, if you do have like right now two different services out here. Service 1 is an Azure agent, something like this. Service 2 is something like this. You can actually stop the service also. Do a right click and stop this outright. This agent will go offline. This is how you can control what agents come online, how can you go offline and all that stuff. For now, I'll just start it out back again so that I can bring the agent back online. Yeah, it'll take some time for the agent to come back online. It's telling running. It came out back online. Now, what I want to do out here is I want to basically run my pipeline on top of one of the agents. So I'll say okay, fine. ASP.NET Full Framework is one of the basically pipeline that I do have. I'll just say edit. And how do I use this out? Is the question. Is that right now, instead of selecting the hosted pool, instead of selecting the Azure hosted pool out here, I'll do a drop down and I'll select on the cloud pool. So on the cloud pool contains how many guys? It contains two different machines out here, right? Now Microsoft is now going to identify which machine is free, and it will allocate that job to that particular machine. So I'll just say save in queue, and I'll add a comment here telling that change the pool. Why again? These are very important to just say that you are actually working in a real-time environment, because comments and everything will definitely help you out in tracking all that history and also. I'll say change the pool to self-hosted. Let's say save and run. Now what's going to happen is that this process is going to be pretty faster than the one that you basically dealt with. Now it automatically got the agent and is saying, okay, fine, I have a job right now. Now if you see at the jobs, right, job is queued and this is running on agent 01 Windows. Now what this is going to do, like this is the initial run, so it's going to take some time out here. Saying agent 01 Windows, it acquired the agent, and now what it's going to do right now is that it's going to take this particular agent service, and now it's going to install, or it's now going to basically download everything from your repository. So firstly, it's doing a checkout of your repository. This is where workspaces come into picture, guys. Now what we told is that we have something called as agent right now, a self-hosted agent right now, which is nothing but a virtual machine that is running in Azure. And we allocated something called as a workspace for this, right? We allocated something called as hyphen or underscore work as a folder for this agent to use on the C drive of the machine. Now what's going to happen is that when your pipeline is running, the first thing that it's going to do is that it's checking out your repository, meaning it's going ahead, it is downloading all your code from your develop branch of the repository onto the work folder of the agent machine. Onto the work folder of the agent machine. This is where concepts called folders come into picture. Now there are three different folders out here. Folder called S, which is the source, meaning all the code that we are talking about right now from your develop branch will be downloaded onto this particular folder called S folder. Second thing, you have something known as a B folder, which is called binaries, meaning after downloading, what it's going to do. Ideally, it's going to do .NET install, .NET restore, and then it's going to build your solution. Meaning, what's happening right now is that now your machine is now identifying that I have a code basically that to take. Now what I'll do is that I'll take all that code, use something called as a Visual Studio in the background, because this is a Visual Studio build, and I will build the code into what? Into binaries. So I'm converting my code from a high level language to a binary language that is understood by the system, right? For to save that, to save all those binaries, it will use a folder called B. Finally, it needs to archive all these binaries, meaning it needs to basically zip all these binaries and save it in a folder called A folder, also called artifact staging directory or artifacts folder. You have three different folders out here. So if you go into your virtual machine also, and this now ran on agent 01, right? So this was the agent 01 folder. And if I go into the work, and if I let's say go into, I'll have to see in which folder basically this got downloaded. So for that, I can see this. It's saying fine. I basically downloaded it where fine. Into let's say the A folder. Let's see where it built the solution. It took this one. It said okay fine, one work and then one. This is the folder basically that it's using. And so work one. Now you have S, B, and A. That's what we are talking about. Source, binary, artifacts. If you look at the source, right? See, it downloaded everything. Everything that was there in my repository kind of got downloaded. Now this is our repository, right? These were the three folders in our develop branch. All the three got downloaded out here. So what it's doing, this is the source folder. This is unbuilt code. This is just the raw code what you're giving it. Secondly, what it's doing is that in the binaries, if you look at, it'll basically convert it into binary and also cut all the binaries from this particular folder and paste it in the artifacts folder. Now this is nothing but the zip file what you get out here. Now if you look at this particular pipeline run, right? And if you look at, let's say, the artifact that it got produced, all the artifacts, everything is just nothing but this. This is called the A folder, guys. Now why am I explaining this is that for troubleshooting, when your agent kind of fails, right? It will fail telling that, you know what, I couldn't download it on the source. What you'll have to do is you'll have to come down to this particular work folder. You'll have to see where exactly it is getting downloaded. What is the issue for it to get downloaded? Most common issue, space. You will run out of space. Like this is just 126 GB, right? So the question here is that for the first time I'm running, it went ahead and downloaded everything into the source. Now if I run for the second time, it will do the same thing again. It will basically do, it will create, now it went ahead and created a folder called one, right? Because it's a first run. Now if you look at the work, it created a folder called one. When the second time you run, it will create a folder called two. Third time you run, it will create a folder called three. It will download everything. So over a period of time, this particular space, right, it will kind of like, get kind of increased out. Now how do you maintain it? A, you can come down after each run and delete it, which is not definitely advisable. B, there is an option in the pipeline also. If I edit my pipeline, If I now say get sources, do you see this option called clean, guys? If I say clean is true, I can now select which folder that I can clean. So before every run, your agent is going to, or the Azure DevOps is going to identify the old binaries, delete all these things out, and then give you a fresh download. So I'll say all build directories, and I'll just say save. Let's say clean option enabled. Meaning before every pipeline run. Now this is how the pipeline is going to run actually. The first time it created a folder called one, right? Inside work, it created a folder called one. In S, it basically downloaded everything. And S folder somewhere is like about 126 MB right now. Each and every run is going to do the same thing. 2, 3, 4, and 5. But with clean option, what it's going to do is like it's going to go ahead and delete the previous downloads and only then download a fresh code inside your machine. This is how you can optimize the space the agent is actually occupying on. Guys, any questions still here? Anything till here? Any questions, guys? Anything? Is it confusing? Is it understandable?
Yeah, it's
Can we use the
easy.
pipeline of ASP.NET Core also?
Yes, you can use it for the same. So that is the reason I have downloaded something called a .NET Core, dependency on this machine. So if you were to use it, let's say for an ASP.NET Core, I have basically installed something known as an ASP.NET 5.1 runtime on this machine. So you can definitely use it for the ASP.NET Core also. Okay. Is that okay, Akila? Okay. Yeah, Chandra, you had a question?
No, I'm just saying it's understandable.
Okay. Now the question here is that, okay, fine, let's go a bit advanced and say you have two different agents. And in some scenarios, I say, okay, fine, this particular agent machine has all the binaries, all the code and everything. This particular machine doesn't have it. Let's say you have two different machines out here. Like right now, they're just one machine basically where you installed everything. But let's imagine you have two different machines. One has all the binaries, meaning all the, let's say, Visual Studio, .NET Core, everything basically installed. And this machine is ready to be as an agent for every Windows workload. This machine is not. But how do you control it here? Because every time that you just run, you're not specifying an agent out here, right? You're just specifying the pool out here. Or in some scenario, let's say this particular agent is down, it's offline, and this agent is already running some workload. Now, what is going to happen is that when you trigger this pipeline, the pipeline is going to fail, telling that the machine is offline, so I cannot help you out. At this particular moment, try again later. Meaning, how do you control on which machine that your build actually runs on? This is very, very, very useful, especially when you're troubleshooting something. When you install some kind of a thing on your machine and you want to try and see how it works, or in cases where a couple of machines are not really working fine because of, let's say, issues with that machine. They have undergone some patching. You have to work on those machines, and you don't want those machines to reflect in your pool. One thing you can do, you can off the agent. You can turn the agent off. Like if you have like hundreds of agent, then it's again going to be it's again going to be, let's say, an administrative burden to go to each and every agent and do this off. Or is there a way that I can force my pipeline only to run on one particular agent? Yes, you can do it. How can you do it? Is let's go into this agent and let's look at the capabilities of this agent. It's saying agent.name is something like agent something something like this, and each the agent computer name is something like agent VM. Now I want to look for one unique thing out here. And that unique thing is nothing but the agent.name, because each and every agent has a different name, right? Now agent 02.wind will have the same computer name because it is running on the same virtual machine, but I don't want my pipeline to pick that up. So I'll say, okay, fine. I'll take this parameter called agent.name. Now what I'll do is I'll say, okay, fine. Let me go back to my pipeline and let me go to something called as a build job. Here you have something known as demands, meaning the demands that are accepted by this particular pipeline. So what I'll do out here is I'll just take the agent.name out here. I'll say add a demand. This is my basically demand what I'm doing. And I'm saying agent.name is equal to the name of this one. So agent.name is the name of this machine. And now I'll save in queue. I'll say add a demand. Now I'll say save and queue. What am I doing right now is that I'm forcing a particular build or I'm forcing a particular pipeline to run on one particular machine, to run on one specific machine out there, to run on a specific machine out there. This is what I am trying to do out here. So this will only pick up that particular machine every time this runs. This is how I can add something called as a demand, or this is a concept called demand. Again, interview question is, what do you mean by a demand on the pipeline? Then your example can be something like this, that if I want to run my pipeline on one particular machine, I can go ahead and add something known as a pipeline demand out there. And it was like very quick, and it went ahead and just downloaded everything, done everything, and the artifact is produced out here. So this is the concept of adding a demand, guys. Now that's fine, good, great. I'm like, done with the demo. How will I basically uninstall the agent? How will I basically uninstall all the agents out here? Now, two ways: you can just come here, directly delete this agent. Like, that's the easiest way. Or you can go through the documentation and uninstall yourself. Just say Azure DevOps self-hosted agent. And this will give you what is the agent, what is the self-hosted agent, how do you install it, and all that documentation. This is something that I want you all to take a look at. That how do you basically install the self-hosted agent, and our basically is like concern is with self-hosted Windows agent, and then it will say basically that what, remove and reconfigure the agent. This is what I need. So if I come here and if I take this out, and let's say if I go to my agent out here, let's say agent 1, this is the command to remove this out. So it's stopping the service, and now it's saying okay, fine. Even to remove I need a token, because someone just cannot come and let's say remove this out. You copy the token out here, and it's the same personal access token that you'll have to provide while installation. Like whatever token that you kind of provided for installation, you will have to provide the same thing. Just in case the token expires, you can create a new one and provide it out. Not a problem until the token is good. Now since I uninstalled, if you look at the pool right now, it's now saying what, the agent is offline, it's uninstalled right now, and it took the agent off also. And you can basically do the same thing for agent 2. So this is the documentation basically that I use in order to read all these things, guys. So thing is, even I don't do it every day, right? Even basically I don't configure all these agents every day. It's like the starting of the project where we configure all these things out and keep it ready. But this, you kind of tend to forget all these things out. So the best way to read all, the best way to learn is, come to the documentation and kind of read this out, very frequently, because the documentations are very much updated. Now earlier to this, there wasn't something, an option called as, let's say, agent on a Docker. Like that's something that they are right now, coming up with, called as a Docker agent. How do you basically host something known as a Docker agent and all that stuff? So that is something which is running inside a Dockerized container and all that stuff. So these documentations are very frequently updated. They are like very much updated and very much kept up to the date. So please come down out here and kind of revisit this every time now. I mean very frequently, and see what you can get from this out. So this was installation of the agent, guys. This was how basically, or this is how basically you go ahead and let's say install the agent and make use of the agent in your pipeline. Now if you see, if I run this pipeline, right, the pipeline will fail. Now see, it says, you know what, there is no agent that is found in the pool. Guys, can anyone tell me why this failed? Like, can anyone tell me what should I have done basically different in order for this pipeline to get succeeded?
We added a demand to run on the
Exactly.
particular agent.
Exactly. You'll have to remove that particular demand. Now, should I edit on the pipeline itself? You can edit on this definition also. There are something called as demands, or you cannot delete a demand. Okay, fine. So you'll have to edit this on a pipeline. Fine. You can say, okay, fine. Edit this pipeline and remove the demand out there. This is a demand basically that I've added, which is forcing this agent only to pick up that particular machine. And that machine is already deleted. So that's the reason. I'll say remove the demand. So this is how basically you can force a particular pipeline to pick up one particular agent out there and all that stuff. This was about our build pipelines and how do you basically use the agent and what are the directories in an agent, like what are the folders inside the agent. This is like quite important, that how basically are the folders. Right now the work folder is empty because agent 2 did not run at all, right? That's why the work folder is kind of empty, but when it runs you'll again have S, B, A, all these three folders coming into picture, and each and everything has its own variable defined. Like I am telling it's a source, but Azure talks it in a different way. This is something that we all have to follow. Just say Azure DevOps predefined variables. So what I'm calling it as an S directory, Azure calls it as a build.sources directory. Build.sources directory, and this can be used as a variable directory. I mean this can be used as a variable directly in your scripts and all. Meaning you can directly do dollar build.source directory, and it will understand that okay fine, wherever the source is I'll have to go ahead and copy it from there, or I'll have to basically publish that particular path and all that stuff. This is how the predefined variable works, and we'll see how to use this particular variable, what to do with this particular variable and all, but I'm just giving you a hint on what we will be doing. So please use this tab, I mean you please use this documentations. Just type in Azure DevOps predefined variable and see, just go through each and every variable and see what it's talking about. For example, you have build.artifact staging directory, which is saying that what, this is something like C agent work, that the work directory one whatever it is /a. This is the path that I will resolve if you give this particular variable name. So please use this, guys. Please make sure to just go through this particular documentation and see what are the variables that Azure DevOps kind of gives you out. Okay. So any questions until now, guys? Any questions until this point? Anything that I can take?
So finally, what we did was install the
Mhm.
install the Azure DevOps into virtual machine, right?
Install the self-hosted agent on a virtual machine. Yes.
Yeah.
And the important questions there are like how does the agent authenticate? What kind of an authentication that you have used? Simple, the agent will always take something known as a PAT token, personal access token, and we generated a personal access token and kind of, let's say, use that personal access token in the Azure DevOps agent pool out there. So any questions, guys? Any questions before we close up for today? Anything? I can actually close this machine. Anything, guys? Anything? And please make sure that you delete all the workloads basically that you created for the demo, and I'll basically kind of delete this out, and if there is another demand I'll basically add this out fresh. This is something that I would basically tell everyone to follow, because if you are especially using something like a pay as you go, then this is going to charge a lot. So that's the reason, please make sure that you delete all these things out at the end of your practice. Even if it's a free trial account, please do it, please follow it out, because at some point in time you will basically go for a pay as you go, right? So please follow it out so that all this is like kept sanity. Yeah, Avinash, you had a question?
Yeah, if we have multiple agents in a one VM, how can we create
Mhm.
demand?
So the same way that I created demand right now, I had multiple
But
agents on the same VM right now.
that virtual machine name will be same for all the agents, right?
That's the reason I went ahead and took the agent name, not the virtual machine name. Now, if you had followed this out, I did not take the virtual machine name. I took the name of the agent. Agent.name is different, virtual machine name is different.
Okay, okay,
I had
thank you.
two different agents. Yeah. Any further question, guys? Anything? Okay, then if there are no further questions, then I'm good to close the session, guys. So please practice this out, and these are like very, very important concepts. And from Monday, we will be looking at a release pipeline. Okay. So till now, we've been doing build pipelines, and we'll carry the same concepts forward, and we'll look at something called as a release pipeline out there. And with the release pipeline, we'll go ahead, take the artifact whatever we produced, and deploy it on top of, let's say, an Azure web app, and see how it responds. And then we'll see how can you create an Azure web app as such using the Azure DevOps pipeline, meaning how do you do an infrastructure as a code using different things like ARM template and all that stuff. And then we are going to go into the open source of things. So this is the plan basically that I have for the next week and for the coming days. And this is how we are going to cover the syllabus, guys. So any questions regarding that? Any questions? Anything basically on what the interview gets you all?
So,
Anything?
so after the deployment, like CD pipeline, then we can go for the like PowerShell scripting or something, ARM templates.
You can actually use ARM and PowerShell for deployment also, like for the deployment. Even before you kind of deploy your code, you can create the machine in place, or you can create the servers in place and then deploy it on top of it.
Okay. Can we have demo on that one?
Yes, we do. That
Okay.
that is something that I was talking about called infrastructure as code.
Thank you.
So I mean, in no way you are actually going to create all these services, manually, like the way we are doing on the portal right now. This is just for demos that we are doing right now, but you're in no way that you're actually going to use the portal and create this out. We will see how that automation is done and all that stuff. Any
And
questions else, guys?
and after completion of entire concepts, I mean entire syllabus, could you create the project by explaining all the concepts, by covering all of the concepts,
Yes,
so that we
certainly. I
can
mean,
clearly understand them?
yeah, one CI/CD entirely. Is it like, yeah, definitely, I'll do that. Like we'll take the same flow as we'll start a demo project from the scratch, and we'll connect all the dots on how do you basically create a repository from branching policies, and then a continuous integration pipeline to a continuous deployment pipeline, and then the maintenance and all that stuff. We'll definitely do that. Any more questions, guys? Anything more before I close?
And also same process will be followed to the ASP.NET network also, right?
Yes, yes,
Agent creation, everything.
yes, the same procedure, but make sure that you are installing the .NET Core 5.1, like the one that we did, the latest version. That is something the ASP.NET is kind of the .NET Core is expecting for. So please do that, and kind of run this out. You may run into errors like the versioning and all that stuff. So please let me know if you kind of run into those errors, and I'll help you out. Okay, then if there are no further questions, guys, then have a good weekend ahead, and we'll meet on Monday and we'll discuss more on Azure DevOps. Thank you, guys. Thank you.